Welcome to CribbleCon. This is the Replacing Chaos with Control, or Modernizing the Data Pipeline with Cribl. My name is Aaron Wilson. I'm the SRE manager at iHerb. Been here for about 3 years, transitioning from being an engineer here and engineer in multiple roles for about 25 years now. iHerb is probably the largest online distributor of supplements and health items outside of Amazon. And so, as you can imagine, we've got quite a lot of data that we need to keep track of. We chose Cribl for that. Going to introduce my co-speaker here, John Rust.
Howdy, welcome everybody. My name's John. I've been working with Aaron for actually about 20 years, but our paths separated a few years ago. He landed at iHerb, I landed at ADP. I landed here from ADP. I've been working with Aaron standing up Cribl over the last almost 3 years now, like he said. Prior to that, I used to be a Splunk architect and a long time ago as an ISP owner.
Yeah. So for the agenda, first we're going to go over our many layers of logging that we had when I started, and then rolling into simplifying those layers, and then the future of making the layers even better.
Is that layers like lasagna?
That's layers like an onion, John.
Oh.
And then we'll follow up with takeaway and tips. Layers like an onion, as a trademarked green ogre once said, logging has layers and onions have layers. They said something like that anyway. Yeah, so this was kind of the application stack for our logging layers when I started here at iHerb. We had lots of different touch points and no central control over them. So our VMs, we had file beats. It's not represented here, but we also had just standard syslog going into a log stash and then into an OpenSearch Kibana instance. For our K8s, we had quite a few things going on. Each node had FluentBent running as a daemon set, which went up to FluentD, which did some of the heavy lifting for log translation, dumped it into Kafka, which was picked up again by another FluentD, and then manipulated some more, and then into OpenSearch and Kibana again.
Yeah, I remember when I first started talking to you and Josh, Aaron, a long time ago, and I was absolutely blown away at the solution you guys built together. That said, it's a little bit of a mousetrap, right? It was hard to manage.
Oh yeah. Manage was not the word that we would use for it. It just ran. Once most of this was set up, it was never touched again. Unfortunately, there was no improvements made. There was no problem solving done. It was either working or it wasn't. And the logs the logs that you got at the end in OpenSearch were the logs you got. You didn't make any requests or changes to any of the data, pretty much.
Yeah, and something like rehydration was almost impossible.
Yeah, we didn't even have a long-term backup solution. It was we had cold storage in Elastic or in OpenSearch, but that was only, I think, a few months worth of data that we would keep there just because of the size. Yeah, something that Cribl has definitely helped us with. So not everybody likes onions, as also once said by a miniature beast of burdens. Logging could be like parfait. Everybody likes a parfait.
Or lasagna.
Simplified layers. So we got rid of everything pretty much in that process. Once Edge was available, because we were actually an adopter of Cribl before Edge was a product, at that point we were just kind of replacing the Kafka layer and the Logstash layer. But once Edge was available, we were an early adopter of it and got to work straight in replacing everything we could with Edge nodes. So every K8, every VM instance is running an Edge node, which forwards up to Stream for the heavy lifting on the log manipulations.
We actually appreciate that you worked with us on this. The Edge product, along with iHerb and Aaron's team, as their as they came across problems, as they came across use cases, they're helping us enact those to enable those in Edge. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to give a shout out here to the Edge team. The support and the development team is outstanding. They live their product, and they are there to make the best product they can. Really happy with the Edge product. Yeah, it's allowed us to simplify everything. We've got a centralized config point. Anything is easy to adjust and track, where we might be losing a log or where it's getting dropped. One thing we didn't even realize before we had all this was we get a significant amount of drops from OpenSearch being an elk stack, where a data field changes and Elastic just rejects it. We didn't know that was happening, and now with that's the stream side, but with Cribl, we're now able to see that rejection happening and manipulate the field to be what's expected. So another thing we enacted for Stream was HPAs for the dedicated monitoring cluster for all the heavy lifting. So in times of heavy load, our instances can scale up. And then, as that load drops down, they'll scale down to save us some money. And so here's a sample of our Edge node layout. I think we have a few more fleets than we should, but we've got quite a few nodes. It gives and takes because this is mostly Kubernetes. So as the Kubernetes nodes spin up and spin down, that node count changes, but we're running about 2,500 nodes, on a daily basis of Edge.
And you get to monitor them and manage them all from one place.
Yes, yeah. Once again, that just makes everything so much easier. I can make a change in one of the pipeline stacks for data manipulation and just deploy it down through the fleets, and changes are easy that way. So it's quite nice. As you can see, we've got it laid out into fleets. So if I make a change in the main pre-prod pipeline, making that change in everything below there is as simple as just clicking deploy once it's all done. The sweet parfait toppings. So besides just the simplicity that comes along with having a centralized management, we gained quite a few other things. Long-term storage. So every log currently goes out in a raw format into S3, so we can replay or rehydrate it anytime we want. If we've got, in a couple months, because we're only keeping 2 weeks worth of storage now in our OpenSearch. If in a couple months one of our teams need to go back and take a look at an issue that has bubbled up to them, they can request a rehydration. It can go back into S3 and pull the logs back in within a few minutes.
Aaron, are you doing that self-service style at this point? Or you have plans to do that self-service?
We are not doing it self-service. We did have plans on doing it self-service until you introduced search. So yes, now with search, we will be making this completely self-service, no more rehydration. The teams will just be able to log into Cribl using the search groups and go in and get that data themselves out of S3. Yeah.
So that's saving your team time from having to do these sort of rudimentary, not related to their primary job functions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that there, to be completely transparent, rehydration is easy.
We do make it easy. I agree.
Yeah.
And let's make it even easier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This way they don't even have to come back and ask us, submit a support ticket to us, have it run through the sprint cycle, whatever, or escalate it if it's a critical item. This way they've just got access to the logs. Tracking, it's easy to track the logs now, like I was mentioning with the problem with ingesting, changed fields into Elastic. we can figure out where along the way the log is missing, just by using the source functionality in Cribl Edge and Cribl Stream, um, you know, dumping the logs as they come in, so we can see where it's crashed or where we're missing them. And then I think the icing on the cake, or the topping on the parfait at the very top, is the routing multiple things in our previous environment. Routing to multiple environments in our previous layout was difficult. We basically had to re-ingest or have different layers for Fluent, taking out of that Kafka and putting it in different places. Now we can use routes. So we've got data moving all over the place. S3 down the pipeline into OpenSearch. The authorization logs go off to security. Security does 9 or 20 things with it, and dumps it into Splunk and other data querying environments. And it takes 5-10 minutes to set up something. We just had a recent case a few months ago where our security team had been working with one of our development teams to include some more auth logs for one of the products. And they had been working for, I think, probably months to get these logs created. And we got the request to route these new logs over to security. And I think, including login time, it was about 15 minutes before the logs were in security pipelines. Effortless. Yeah,
so much time savings, right?
Yeah, just effortless. Didn't have to guess on regex or anything like that. It was just find the logs with matching this, these fields, and dump them in.
Yeah, in your prior life is probably before Cribl, Fluent bit config files and purely regex based and config file based, and the whole cycle of restarting things and testing it out versus being able to test it inside Cribl in this preview windows and its sandboxing and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But even parfaits can get better. So always move forward. We just switched over from on-prem Cribl leaders to Cribl Cloud. So both our pre-prod and prod environments had separate leaders in segregated environments. Now they are together on the same leader. This is a big cost savings for us. We were running this in Kubernetes, but even if they were running on EC2 instances, it takes a pretty good instance size to run a leader node with the amount of data that we're pushing through there. I can't even imagine what your bigger customers are working with. We had it scheduled in production as a 4XL AWS node or instance, and it was slow. It didn't have enough memory. We probably needed at least twice that size, but because of the cost, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. We are now saving, 2 very large nodes of instance time. So that is
and admin time
and admin time. Absolutely. Yeah. Having it on the cloud is definitely easier. And
to be clear, Cribl Cloud, you're talking about just the leader is what you moved into cloud, right? You're still running all your worker nodes in your own data centers.
Yeah, all the data stays local. So yeah, every edge and stream node is local within our own Kubernetes environment, running in hybrid mode. So yes, only the leaders are in production, with the exception of search. Moving on to search, we are exposing the data now S3 to your search. Forward thinking, within the next probably couple months, I'll be introducing this to our first team. I've already let them know about it. The team that typically decides to ask for rehydration the most will be our guinea pigs.
How's their feedback been? Have you introduced it to any users yet, and what's their feedback on usability?
I showed one user a screen share with them, and they were pretty excited about it. I do have to make a couple changes to the way we're doing our raw data capture for that S3, I need to run it through a couple pipelines before it goes to S3 for some log changes, some field changes that we do for it to be fully functional for them. But yeah, they were
Yeah,
super excited about it.
I have some software you can use to clean up that log data before you send it to S3. We should talk after.
Is it Cribl?
It might be.
And then, in the future, we would really like to do away with open search entirely, relying strictly on search. That's a goal, and we will see if we can achieve that. And then Cribl Lake, which was recently just introduced, we are looking to partner with our data engineering team on a proof of concept to replace things like our mirror makers and Kafka connectors with Lake, so that there's the same level of transparency and ease of configuration that we have with logging in data engineering, because right now that is another black box that is a little difficult to keep track of.
Yeah, so talk about that for a second. What is the effort if you needed to stand up a new place to dump logs? What's the effort like before Lake, and what's it like after Lake?
So everything right now is all in GetOps for our Kafka connector and mirror makers. So in theory, it should be extremely easy, where we just add the configs where they need to be, the source and destinations, which Kafkas they're going to go to, and push it out. The problem comes with things like incorrect topic names, or where a topic is an Avro topic versus something that's a JSON topic or something along those lines, where they just don't know what exactly is going on. With Lake, we'll be able to visualize that data and know what the problem is. That's just straight JSON. That's not Avro. Why are we trying to ingest it as Avro? The gumdrop buttons. Not the
I don't have any
gumdrop
lasagna
buttons.
gumdrop button analogies, so can't help you there.
ROI, return on investment. Time savings, time savings, time savings. That was our major return on investment. We don't have to toil over fixing logging and telemetry data, trying to get it to where it belongs. It's stable.
Yeah, and we talked a lot when we were both at our previous employer, and the amount of time that I spent on this part of managing, fixing, onboarding log sources was through the roof. And what everybody talks about with Cribl is, oh, you can reduce my license. And honestly, I didn't give any care to that at all while I was at ADP. It was all about the time savings of getting data, managing that data. So I'm assuming it's similar for you.
Yeah, and we were going from open source to a licensed product. So return on investment has got to be in terms of humans, right?
That's a really good point too.
Yeah, and that's a point that a lot of SaaS vendors have, is that it's going to save you guys time. What's the salary worth, kind of thing. The stability. We don't touch Cribl on a daily basis. It just runs. Everything just runs. Everything from the persistent queuing, when we've got a backup, when Elastic is down, it recovers. It's all good. I don't even think about it anymore. And with all that comes less stress, right? I don't have to work on it. It's painless. Best practices. So as I had mentioned a little earlier, all of our stuff, all of our deployments are all in a GitOps solution. We use Flux for our CD. So anything within our Kubernetes environments that is infrastructure related gets pushed out this way. So if we have an update or a new cluster to deploy, it's easy. You just add it into the configuration and it deploys. It's there. It's done.
So So that's really interesting because we've got tools built into Cribl that help you keep things up to date. You know, versioning of Cribl, versioning of your
Mhm.
configs, things like that. But we also offer you the flexibility to do it on your own, which is what you've done. You've
Yeah,
implemented your own solution to keep things up to date. That's great.
yeah, and we've got our own deployment schedules for keeping up our products, our infrastructure products up to date. So Cribl is actually on the fast track for that, though. I because of uh, the wonderful additions that keep getting added, I do update it quicker than defined standard, which is twice a year. But
We've got to make better parquet, so we're
Yeah,
trying.
exactly. And every release is like, oh, hey, look, this is nice and new, so let's try this out. So and it with GitOps, it's painless. Once again, I use my Visual Studio, you know, find and replace all the versions and save it, push it out, run a PR, done.
And it melds in with the rest of your environment that you're doing
Yeah,
that for. I
yeah.
take it.
Everything is pushed out that way. Every piece of our infrastructure is. So yeah. Um, at least within the Kubernetes environments. For Windows, that's a different story, but that's also automated. Our solution is not the best solution, but we really only had one thing touching all of our Windows boxes, and that was our patching solution for Windows and Linux as well. So yeah, I've got basically PowerShell scripts and Bash scripts in our AutoMox environment. So it works. It's not pretty, but it works. That is our key takeaways. Tips and tricks.
I've interacted with a lot of clients, so I see things that work and see things that don't, and I
Exactly.
love to see the things you guys have done. One of my big ones that I think I introduced you to, we go out of order here, is that tags thing. So all the configuration objects in Cribl have the option to tag them. And that has
Mhm.
nothing to do with data going through the system. It's just about being able to locate those configuration items quickly
Yep.
via the searching. So, you could label it with an environment name or a product name or whatever, and be able to find those really quickly.
Yep. Yep. That's super helpful. Passing data between Edge and Stream or Stream and Stream using Cribl TCP, you get the single ingest charge and don't have to, you know, pay more for the same data.
Yeah,
that was something
that's
we
totally
found
good.
out because we were doing it wrong. So
That's right. I remember that early
yeah,
on, and it gives
yeah,
you the flexibility to tier your environment, right? So you can have
yep.
lower tier, mid tier, higher, however you want
Yeah,
to do it.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah. We've got Edge dumping to Stream via Cribl TCP. We've got Stream dumping to Stream. That's how security gets their stuff out of the main logs. So yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah, that's
works
great.
seamlessly as long as they're on the same leader.
You're right.
Yeah,
And I think you and I talked about naming conventions are big. So,
yeah,
give some thought to how you name your things and group them, like in your routing table or your pipelines or even your inputs. Think about how you're naming things so it's going to be easier to tell what you're doing, what you did. Help future you out.
yeah, exactly. Or future not you.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. More important.
Yeah. Let's see, multiple layers of persistent queues. So yeah, we queue at our destination layer at every layer. So if it's Edge, we're queuing before we upload into Stream in case the Stream site is down or there's any issues communicating with it. And same with the next layer at Stream. So Stream dumping to Elasticsearch or dumping to Prometheus or dumping to another Stream Cribl TCP is all persistent queues there. We've got larger queues on those streams because those are bigger workers. I don't want to keep a whole lot
And
of data
if
on
I
each.
remember right, that's one of the things you guys are using Kafka for before was sort of
Yep.
a shock absorber.
Yeah. Exactly.
And with
Yep.
persistent queuing in Cribl, you get that same effect where,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's a big surge of data that we can't keep up with or whatever, or something's down, we're just writing it to disk and we'll dump it when we can.
Yeah. And it works better than Kafka did because as you're at it, if you're scaling your Kafka subscriber, it has to restart every time you scale up. So if you're using HPAs to scale, You're in this constant loop of restarting.
Oh, yeah,
The,
that's
the, the
painful.
HPA wants to scale down or scale up depending on what's going on. It restarts again, so you get into this nasty loop of just decline and decay and nothing happening. So yeah,
And the bonus, you don't need to be a Kafka PhD to run
yeah,
Cribl, which
yeah.
is
This
nice.
this is true. Yeah,
And
um,
then packs. I love packs because they give you another layer of hierarchy in your routing and pipeline decision making, where you have a subset of configs, and also it's packageable, so you can develop it on a development machine, export it into your pack, and then import it in production. For example, team by team, whatever.
right. A couple quick little things at the end here. We I know Cribble has quite a few metrics. I like more metrics. These are all, well, most of these are actually exported from Cribble as metrics into Prometheus and Grafana. Um, so this from left to right is basically the pipeline from our sources to our destinations, at least for the majority of it. There are a few things that are missing out of this particular view, but this is probably 99% of our data. Quite a lot of data.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and in the center here you see the queue. So we've got a persistent queue showing up there. That was my checkout edge queue that had built up, and down on the bottom we've got throughput of that queue, um, which is helpful to see what's going on. I believe on my edge I've got it set as maximum queue of 1 GB for each node, um, and
Yeah,
then
that's reasonable. I mean, I
yeah,
get asked that question all the time. How do I size queuing? And
yeah,
it's personal preference.
yeah,
You have the option to compress and guesstimate 10-to-1 compression, and then how much data per hour or do you expect to pass, and how many hours do you expect to be down for?
right,
Can you live with being down?
yeah.
So yeah, just some simple math to set it
Yeah,
up.
and when the queue's full, you don't have to drop it. I've got all my queues set to block, so
Yep.
it just backs up to the next point. That
Yeah, we
that
give you
works.
controls in here also
Yeah,
about not only what to do once it's full, and you've got to set the block there, but also how quickly do we want to
yeah,
drain it.
yeah.
So like you've got no limit on that, but if you had
I
a
do. Yeah,
sensitive endpoint, you didn't want to
yeah,
drop a
yeah,
terabyte of data on it all of a sudden, you can limit it if you need to.
yeah. I did remove all those limits. Uh, the infrastructure seems to be able to handle the dump from our side, and where it can't, it auto corrects itself. So Elastic does do rejects, but it's auto correcting itself at that point. So I don't need to tell
Yeah.
Elastic how much data it's going to be taking. It just does it by itself. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate having you out here.